So now we will really start, and I will ask Françoise Bonnet to come on the stage. So Françoise is the Secretary General of ACR+. Thank you.
Thank you, Gaëlle, and thank you to all participants. I don't know where I can stay here. Yes. And of course, I'm pleased to be here for this final conference of the Biocircularcities project. And yes, bioeconomy is certainly an important topic when you speak about circular economy. And I'm really pleased to see that you had pilot project, because I think it's also very important to test solutions. You have 3 pilot projects, and 2, I would say, are really trying to have innovation and innovative solutions with unavoidable organic waste, with coffee and forest. The third one, I think, is also very interesting, and I'm really happy to see that you tackle really the whole problematic with the Barcelona project. And by the way, Barcelona is one of our members, so I'm really happy that they are in for that also. You have also to tackle the avoidable organic waste. You know that we have a big challenge of food wastage in Europe that will be hopefully tackled in the new Waste Framework Directive modification. So I think it's really important to be aware of that, of course, innovation is really a way to find very good solutions, but we need also to be aware that we just have also to change our behavior, and that we need to have in mind that prevention is always the best solution when it is feasible. Okay, so this is my first message, I would say. The second message, and I'm also very happy that ACR+ is in this project, is because we are all convinced within our network that public authorities are one of the stakeholders and one of the actors of the different value chain. And it's not always easy for them to be aware that they are a real actor, because for each value chain, you need a kind of framework. You need sometimes, often, regulation to settle the rules. And public authorities, they are, of course, regulator when they have to, but they can be also a real facilitator, easing and bridging between actors. So I think it's really important to have them on board for this kind of project. Last but not least, I know, and Gaëlle mentioned it, that this afternoon you will have the possibility to exchange with other projects dealing with more or less the same topic. And this is, I think, also something that we need to keep growing and to feed with our links, networks, etc. And I think this place today is really the good place, because, you know, it's a link factory. And in order to capitalize the result of the different projects and to be aware of the result, you need to exchange, you need to communicate. And so I think it's a very good opportunity this afternoon to exchange and to learn a little bit from each other. So I wish you a fruitful conference, and let's hope to have concrete results in the future all together with bioeconomy and bio solutions. Thank you.
Thank you, Françoise. Now I will go down, it's easier. We will continue with a bit of context and understanding about the project. And it's Luisa Mascia from the CBGU who will tell us what this, what's behind the founding.
So, good morning, everyone. Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you, Gaëlle, for the introduction. As Gaëlle mentioned, I'm the project officer of Biocircularcities, and it's a double pleasure for me to be here today. First of all, because the kickoff happened online, so I didn't have a chance to see many of you. I'm happy to have the chance now, even though we're at the end of the journey, but we can say we will have a happy ending. And second, I'm happy to be here to listen to the results of this project of Biocircular City. I understand not everyone is fully familiar with the Circular Bio-Based Europe joint undertaking. So we are joint undertaking. It's a joint initiative between the public and private sector. It's a 2 billion euros initiative, bringing together the European Union, represented by the Commission as the public sector, and the Bio-Based Industries Consortium as the private side of the initiative. The main objective of the CBJU is to help building a competitive and sustainable bio-based industries in Europe. And how we do this, mostly by de-risking investments, and concretely we fund projects. And we fund projects that develop innovative bio-based materials, bio-based products. We're talking about everyday products, chair, glasses, binders, shampoos, creams, you name it. And we help taking these innovations out of the lab and up to commercial scale, because we found also very highly technological projects up to TRL 8 to fund commercial size biorefineries. So what we want to do basically is to provide circular solutions to some of the problems that were created by a linear economy. But to do this, it's not enough to fund cutting-edge technologies or high TRL innovations. We also need the right policies, the right strategies to be in place to enable the bio-based industries to flourish. We need also the right legislation and regulations for those bio-based innovations not to get stuck in the lab, get out of the lab. And we also need to be sure that consumers, citizens will understand those innovations, will be ready to take them up. So we need a lot of awareness. And this is why we're also financing projects like yours, Biocircular Cities, because these are the kind of projects that complement and support other highly technological initiatives that we have. And I'd like to mention two merits that I think this project had. First of all, you've been working in the very heart of the circular bioeconomy, where the circular bioeconomy happens, so cities. Cities are on the front line of the green transition, but still struggle to make the shift. And so action is very much needed there. And so you've been doing this, you've been raising awareness, you've been spurring collaboration among different local stakeholders, public authorities, very much needed, but also SMEs, citizens, the scientific community. And you've also been promoting the importance of embedding bio-waste strategies in more general waste management strategies, more general circular bioeconomy strategies. And this is not business as usual, because this is a sector that sometimes still work in silos. So it's made of different sectors that need to talk to each other. So well done on this one too. And the second merit is to focus on bio-waste, which is an important part of the CBJU portfolio, not just via your projects, but we have other projects as well. Given the current geopolitical context, as we know, there's, bio-waste accounts for 35% of municipal solid waste, so it's the largest single component of municipal solid waste, and new member states have a target to recycling and reusing by 2035, 65% of this waste. So it's an important target, but also the revised EU framework directive on waste and other regulations require that bio waste is also used as a feedstock to produce new products and materials. So that's why I'm proud of the Biocircular project, and we are proud at CBU. I think I can come on behalf of the organization. So because you'll be among the ones showing a way to upscale by ways to meet the targets, and to upscale by ways to ensure that those streams are used as feedstock and converted to high added value product. So your case studies, I think, are not just simply case studies. The pilot developed Barcelona and Naples, and I have to read this one, Pazardzhik, are real models that can be exported and replicated in other cities, in other rural areas. So well done. And just finally, most importantly as well, as you're all here, I'd like to congratulate again all the members of the consortium, all the team. This project was one of the 4 CSPs that we funded in 2020. There was a high competition. There were 38 proposals, so it was not a given that you would make it. So well done, and under excellent coordination, I have to say, you've brought the project to a very successful end. So congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you, Luisa. So now it's an easy transition, as we will finally know what is the project about. Thanks to Kai.
Okay. Okay. So you already heard the name quite a lot, Biocircularcities. In front. I'm a bit afraid to move this one. I'm a bit afraid to move the stage. Is there any technician? Because there are the cables. Can everybody see it? Can everybody see slides again? Problem solved. So, welcome everybody, good morning. I'm happy to see so many new faces as well. And I'm going to give a brief introduction about the Biocircularcities project. As the name already indicates, exploring the circular bioeconomy potential in cities and proactive tools for the implementation by policymakers and stakeholders. We had a very nice introduction by our project officer, Luisa. Yes, it's a coordination and support action funded by BBIGU under the Horizon 2020 project. We're at the very end of a 2 years project period. So this is the final conference, as you all know. And to give you a brief overview about the aims of this project, first of all, it's about supporting the development of innovative regulatory frameworks aligned with the bioeconomy principles, but it's also about exploring the circular bioeconomy potential of unexploited biowaste streams in 3 pilot areas. We have 8 consortium partners. I'm happy to say that they're all here today, so you will see every one of them. And the core of our project, as was mentioned already, are 3 different pilot areas with very different value chains. So the first of them is in the metropolitan area of Barcelona. And here we decided to focus on the most common biowaste stream, which is municipal biowaste. And there's the big challenge to improve the current system of biowaste collection, but also biowaste prevention, as was mentioned before. And with the stakeholders, it was decided that the best alternative value chain would be to actually upgrade biogas into biomethane in the future. And for that, of course, you need to also have more input material for anaerobic digestion. Our second
pilot area is the municipal area of municipal city of Naples, I'm sorry. And here we are focusing on agro-industrial bio-waste. And it's also a very new stream that we decided to focus on. It's coffee silver skin from coffee roasting industries. So, and to be processed into a novel food, meaning it has a market before 1997. And it's a functional ingredient for bakery products, but we will hear more about this later. And the third pilot area is a very special one because this is not an urban area, as you can see, like forestry residues from a province in Bulgaria called Pazardzhik, a rural area with a very strong forestry sector. And here we decided to have a look at two different scenarios. One is the lignocellulosic valorization, so the production of biochemicals, and the second one, and maybe a bit less innovative, but more feasible, maybe in the area solution, combined heat and power plant for the production of bioenergy. About the main outcomes, which will all be presented today. The first one are extensive life cycle analysis and life cycle costing for the three selected value chains. And then in this case, the current scenario is compared to the alternative ones, which I presented before. And this will be presented by my colleague Amalia from INEA. The second one, I'm going to talk about this later, policy recommendations based on drivers and barriers identified in the current policy framework in the three areas. And the third one, going to be presented by Lorraine, my colleague from LIST in Luxembourg, a web-based tool also referred to as guidelines to assist policymakers and industry choosing the best bio-based value chains in the future, because it can be very complex to have an overview about the existing options and so on. So it's a very interesting tool. You will hear more about this later. And it's important to mention that through all of these project outcomes aligned with a multi-actor approach, meaning that there was a constant involvement of local stakeholders and international experts throughout the project. So all results are also done with the help of them, achieved with their help. So briefly about the multi-actor contribution. As explained, we have these three pilot areas with the three very different selected value chains. And for each and every single value chain, we had three local living labs in local language, meaning Catalan, Italian, and Bulgarian. So 9 local living labs in total, some of them online, some of them on site. Also, of course, with the COVID period, at the beginning of the project was a bit complicated. Then we also really appreciated the on-site options. And following the local living labs, we had in total 3 advisory board meetings and 3 peer review sessions with international experts on the field and also chosen for the selected value chains. And that was also very valuable for us. And I would also really like to show you the video that we prepared.
Are producing a huge amount of biowaste. We are producing a huge amount of biowaste. Every year in the EU, about 100 million tons of biowaste are generated, and 20% of the food produced is lost. Preventing overproduction and losses over the food supply chain is a priority. Yet, if part of waste is unavoidable, it is luckily also highly valuable. With efficiently separated biowaste, it is now possible to produce energy, textiles, plastics, chemicals, and even pharmaceuticals or nutraceutical bioproducts. This valorization of unavoidable bio-waste is one of the pillars of what we call circular bioeconomy. But what is it exactly? Bioeconomy is an economy based on renewable resources from the land and the sea. It becomes circular when nothing is lost and when bio-waste is recycled in a sustainable way. Could a circular bioeconomy become the norm? With the Biocircular Cities project, we think it is possible. This innovative European-funded project explores the full potential of circular bioeconomy by investigating economically and environmentally efficient models for food, agricultural, or forestry waste. 3 pilot territories will identify the opportunities and barriers of different bio-waste management value chains. In the metropolitan area of Barcelona, we will evaluate the implementation of door-to-door or smart bin collection systems. This will improve quantity and quality of municipal bio-waste to produce high-quality bioproducts. In addition, it involves increasing both citizens and political commitment to reduce food waste. In the metropolitan city of Naples, we will foster the cooperation of the many important agri-food industries by mapping the generated bio-waste. The objective is to identify opportunities of industrial symbiosis and improve the current waste management system. The rural region of Pazardzhik needs a larger deployment of circular bioeconomy to take exploited bio-waste from agriculture and forestry sectors. In addition to awareness campaigns, we will investigate energy production and lignocellulosic valorization to produce biochemicals. In all 3 territories, local living labs bring together local stakeholders, researchers, experts, and practitioners to build common visions and tools. Local experiences and exchanges with key players of the bioeconomy will feed guidelines and policy recommendations, supporting innovative regulatory frameworks and roadmaps for a circular bioeconomy across all Europe. An online will also assist policymakers and industry in designing bio-waste management strategies. The goal is to reveal the full potential of circular bioeconomy for a better environment and to improve local growth. Let's team up and make circular bioeconomy the new model.
Okay, so now I hope that you all have a good overview about the project and we can go more into details. I will give the floor to my colleague Jean-Benoît.
Thanks, Karin. Oh. Hello, everyone. Well, thanks for being here. Thanks also for the people joining us online. We want you. It's my pleasure to introduce the first roundtable, what we call it Why and How to Unlock Local and Circular Bioeconomy. Biocircular Cities is a project bringing 2 types of players, let's say. There were on one side, local players, the pilot territories, willing to either implement in an operational way more circular bioeconomy models or governing the transition. And we had experts, researchers trying to explain to the local player what circular bioeconomy means, if this is a good idea, and how to unlock it, because moving from a pilot scale or research scale to a full scale, or even replicating to other territories, requires a work on regulation and improving the framework. And this is about those experts that help us understand what bioeconomy is, whether it was a good idea or not, and how to make it useful for everyone. And I'm very happy to welcome them on stage. So Amalia from Enea, the Italian Agency for Innovation, Energy and Sustainable Development. I've got Karine again, because she not only was the coordinator of the project, but she also worked on policy recommendation. And last but not least, Lorraine Chauchois from LIST, the Luxembourg Institute of Science, who worked on replication. So welcome, all of you. And I propose that I will stop this introduction because I don't have much to say, actually, interesting stuff to say. And I will leave the floor to Amalia. Amalia Zuccaro from LIST. So she was our expert on life cycle assessment and life cycle costs. And she's the one that investigated the different value chain and tried to explain what changes were required, but also whether it was a good idea from an environmental and economic point of view. So she will try to explain that in an exciting way. I'm sure she will do it perfectly. And the floor is yours, Amalia.
Thank you, Jean-Benoit. Thank you for the presentation. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Now I will briefly explain our idea to evaluate the sustainability of the investigated chain. We applied the life cycle thinking methodology, that is a methodology able to evaluate the impact of the whole chain, the whole investigated chain, starting from the evaluation of pre-production up to the end of life, and also including the evaluation of recycling, recovery, reuse of product. In particular, we evaluated the environmental and economic aspects of the three investigated chain. As Karin explained before, we tried to evaluate three really different bio-waste chain. In particular, for the province of Pazardzhik, we focus on forestry residues, since this area is a territory based on forestry, and according to the feedback received from the local stakeholders during the Forest Living Lab, we decided to investigate two different scenarios. Of course, we evaluated the business as usual, the current situation that are mainly based on the use of forestry residues in order to produce pellets, mainly pellets, but there is also a small fraction, about 5% of these forestry residues that are used compost, that can be used as fertilizer instead of the fossil fertilizer. Of course, there is a huge amount of unused forestry residues, about 35% of the total residues produced, that still remain on the floor. And this is a problem for province of Pazardzhik, since open fire are usually happen during the year. And for this decide to focus on this amount, these unused residues, and we evaluated two different scenarios. In both alternative scenarios, 10% of these unused forestry residues are still left on the ground in order to maintain the soil characteristics. Instead, the other 25% we investigate the possibility to valorize in two different ways. According to the need of local territory, we investigated the energy valorization in order to produce electricity and heat through the application of conversion in CHP plant, combined heat and power plant. And we also investigate the possibility to valorize the lignocellulosic fraction in order to produce biochemicals. How are the results? we applied the LCA and the life cycle assessment and the life cycle costing. From the environmental point of view, the results highlight that both alternative scenarios are better than the current situation. In particular, the main benefits coming the alternative scenarios based on the valorization of lignocellulosic fraction in order to produce biochemicals. If we enter in deep detail these scenarios, you can see that there are net benefits coming from the production of biochemicals. In particular, these benefits are related to the avoided production of fossil counterpart. We avoided the production of fossil butanediol, fossil succinic acid, and fossil ethyl levulinate that are the three main biochemicals evaluated during our study. In particular, the avoided production of fossil BDO, fossil butanediol, produce a highest potential benefits. Of course, there are also some environmental laws, mainly related to the transformation of lignocellulosic action into these value products, and the main hotspot is related to the electricity consumption used in the biorefinery plant that is needed to convert these residues into biochemicals. Also, if we analyze the economic point of view through the life cycle costing, it's appeared that the most advantageous scenarios is the biochemical production, is the scenarios based on the biochemical production, and in particular the revenue that coming from the selling of that can come from the selling of biochemicals are really, since these chemicals are really important in the current situation, in the current management situation. We can therefore conclude that the biorefinery scenarios, the scenarios based on the production of biochemicals, seems to be the most suitable and seems to be a suitable alternative to the current situation. Moreover, the production of butanediol, the bio butanediol seems to be most convenient than the other two bio-based chemicals. Of course, there is some hotspot, some loads, as I told you before, that are mainly related to the electricity consumed during the transformation process. For this reason, it is important to use the best available technology in order to reduce the energy consumption, and also it is important to improve the use of renewable sources instead of fossil energy sources. Of course, also from the environment, from the economic points of view, the valorization of forestry residues through the alternative scenarios based on the biochemical production seems to produce a net saving, and for this reason it is very important to investigate, to deeper investigate this kind of scenario. If we move to the second investigated pilot case study, in this case, we analyzed the agro-industrial organic waste chain in the metropolitan city of Naples. As we explained before, the current business as usual scenarios is based on the use of coffee silverskin, that is the main waste coming from the coffee roasting chain, is commonly used in the metropolitan city of Napoli in order to produce compost, and only a small fraction of this coffee silverskin is sent to the landfill. However, we evaluated an alternative scenario, a very new alternative scenario that included the possibility to use the coffee silverskin as a functional ingredient that can be implemented, that can be used in the bakery production, in the bakery chain. And we analyzed the possibility to use the coffee silverskin instead of flour for the production of bread. And we analyzed also in this case the environmental and the economic impacts coming from the evaluation of both current scenarios, that is based on the use of silverskin to produce compost, or to use this kind of ingredient like a product in order to produce the bread, a functional bread. And the results that we obtained from the environmental points of view are suggesting us that the use of silverskin as a functional ingredient is really a good option, since it produces net benefit because we avoided the production of flour, and we used this ingredient in the bakery products. Also, from the economic points of view, we obtained the same results, and we obtained the net saving from the use of this ingredient in the bakery product. We can therefore conclude that avoiding the production of flour by using the silverskin in the alternative scenario seems to produce a net benefit. Of course, there are some impact mainly related to the electricity, also in this case, needed to convert the silverskin into functional ingredient. And also another hotspot in this case is related to the transportation of coffee silverskin from the coffee roasting industry to the treatment plant. And for this reason, we suggest to reduce the transportation, for example, facilitating a transformation process near to the facility where the coffee is produced. And also from the economic point of view, the alternative scenarios result to be more sustainable than the current business as usual scenario that are usually based on the transformation of silverskin into compost. The last case study investigated is based on municipal bio-waste. As Karin told you before, this is the main bio-waste produced in the metropolitan area of Barcelona. In this case, in the current situation, the bio-waste is collected in open containers. Then the bio-waste is sent to a treatment plant that it is called EcoPark 2, where it is converted into biogas in order to produce electricity that partially covers the self-consumption of the EcoPark 2, the transformation process, and partially is sent to the grid in order to supply the electricity demand. Of course, we analyzed also the digestate that coming from the anaerobic digestion, that it is partially sent to the landfill and partially is reused in order to produce compost. This is the current scenarios in Barcelona. And as alternative scenario, we decided to, first of all, investigate the possibility to reduce the amount of bio-waste produced through the application of prevention measure. And secondly, we introduce a different collection system based on door-to-door and smart bin instead of the open containers. And of course, the collected bio-waste has a less impurity in the business as usual scenario. For this reason, the amount of biogas produced is higher, and it is possible also to upgrading this biogas in order to produce biomethane. In this case, we investigated how is the impact of the production of biomethane. And from the environmental point of view, we saw that also in this case, the alternative scenarios, the production of biomethane in order to be as a substitute of energy sources, or the biomethane used for transportation is produce less impact than the production of biogas as electricity sources. Also, if we enter in deeper detail of the results achieved, we can see that the main impacting phase is related to the collection, also in the alternative scenarios. And regarding the outcome from the life cycle costing, we observed that the alternative scenario seems to produce less cost than the current business as usual scenario. For this reason, we can conclude that also for metropolitan area of Barcelona, the alternative solution based, as I told you before, on prevention measure, on a different collection system, on different treatment, because we are upgrading the biogas to produce biomethane, result to be more sustainable from both environmental and economic points of view. Of course, there are some impact mainly related to the collection system, and it is important to improve the collection of bio-waste. And it is also important to underline that the alternative scenarios seems to produce net environmental benefit, about giving a reduction of about 70% in the environmental impacts. And therefore we can conclude that for the three alternative, the three pilot area, the alternative scenario seems based on the bioeconomy solution, the circular bioeconomy solution, seems to produce net benefits from both economic and environmental point of view. Okay. and conclude.
Thank you, Amalia. If you've got questions for Amalia, we'll take them after the round of presentation. If you're online, just ask them in the chat. We'll write them down and ask them to Amalia. And we'll move on to the next speaker. So you already listened to her this morning. It's Karin again. She had a bit of free time, so she also took care of the policy recommendations and like scanning all the different policies, barriers, understanding what prevented the different players from going circular. As you could see in Amalia's presentation, we had very sometimes complicated value chain with many arrows, many steps that are governed by different regulations. Luisa mentioned working in silos. This is something we saw. Like, sometimes the players on the value chain are really disconnected from one another. That's why we need better governance or better policies for everyone to move in the right direction. And this is what Karin will explain to us right now. So Karin, again, the floor is yours.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm going to start my presentation on policy recommendation connected to the previous presentation, actually. So I'm first of all going to give you the policy recommendations, the very general ones, also transferable to other pilot regions from the outcomes of the LCA and LCC analysis presented by Amalia before. So first of all, there's a recommendation to use renewable energy sources in the valorization process, because also biorefineries, they actually use a lot of energy, and it makes a very big impact to choose renewable ones. The second one is to purchase energy efficient machinery and also to use best available technology. Then to optimize transport, and also it's important to choose more environmentally friendly fuels, and to make sure that the distances are not unnecessarily long, that you have also in remote areas some biorefineries, you don't need to cover very long distances for the transportation of biowaste and so on. Of course, in accordance with the EU waste hierarchy, reuse and recycle, take action against plant obsolescence, promote the spread of eco-design. And in order to realize all these actions, financial support is crucial, so fiscal and financial incentives for the implementation of these recommendations. But this is not all. Like, the policy recommendations are based on a bit more complex methodology. So first of all, in the course of this project, 144 documents on biowaste and circular bioeconomy were analyzed at European level, but also at national, regional, and local level for the 3 pilot areas. Out of these documents, 72 documents were analyzed in more details, and the most relevant passages extracted. And one part of the definition of the drivers and barriers for the implementation of circular bioeconomy in the pilot areas comes from that part. The second, and also one part of the policy recommendations. But the second very important part I mentioned before is actually the stakeholder involvement. So as for the drivers and barriers, but also for the policy recommendations, the local stakeholders and also the advisory board members and peer reviewers contributed a lot. We also included good practice examples at European level relevant to the 3 pilot areas, and also looking at existing legislations, policy instruments in other countries than the pilot countries, meaning Bulgaria, Spain, and Italy. And then, as already presented, of course, also the results of the life cycle thinking approach done by Enea was also a big part of the policy recommendations. In total, we defined 4 policy recommendations. I'm not going to go through all of them in detail, no worries. I'm just explaining that we have 30 general policy recommendations, which are relevant to all 3 pilot areas on data management, organic waste treatment and sustainable biorefineries, market incentives for bio-based products, and I need to say sustainable-based products, public awareness and support, stakeholder involvement, and something I'm not going to talk about now in this presentation, bioplastics, because theoretically for all 3 pilot chains, bioplastics would also be a potential product. And there's a lot of legislation connected to it. And then we have 64 specific policy recommendations for the different pilot areas, for forestry residues, in this case the collection part, but also biochemicals and bioenergy production, then agro-industrial organic waste, and as I mentioned before already, novel food. And municipal bio-waste, like I have to admit that most policy recommendations are connected to this chain because it's so complex. You have food waste prevention, you have separate collection, anaerobic digestion, biogas, biomethane, and there's a lot of legislation at EU level, but also for Spain at national, regional, and local level. I'm going to give you some very brief examples and very simply formulated. On data management, we recommend at EU level to introduce standardized guidelines for data and analysis for all types of organic waste, so also for agro-industrial waste and forestry residues, because on municipal bio-waste there are already some. And then at a national and regional level, introduce into law updated, comprehensive, transparent, and freely accessible databases on municipal bio-waste streams using European standardized guidelines. Something which is already introduced into many countries are the national electronic platforms for waste management, and we recommend to also integrate the bio-waste flows in there. And like I can tell, originally I'm from Austria, we have a very comprehensive database, but Spain is a much bigger country and you have many very large regions, and so far they're not nicely interconnected between each other. So data flow also in between regions is very important. And when it comes to organic waste treatment and sustainable biorefineries, we recommend at EU and national level to ensure planning security with regard to framework conditions and subsidies, because it takes a long time to actually build such plans, and then also a lot of investment is required. So having at least a 15 years time period in order to amortize the investment, but also to make sure that this is a long-term solution. There are also some negative examples in the case of biogas from the past, but I think lessons were learned. And it's also important to phase up subsidies which are not consistent with the EU waste hierarchy. So it's already in incineration, for example. And at regional level, introduce financial incentives for technical improvements of existing treatment plants, but also the use of best available technology. And of course, for the construction of new biorefineries. And in this case, we recommend to give preference to bio-based products according to the cascading use of biomass principle, meaning giving preference to bio-based materials and food and feed, rather than to bioenergy, this should be the least preferred option. And at national level, it's also recommended to build capacity in municipalities in order to speed up the permitting process for new biorefineries, because this can take quite a long time and it's definitely a big. when it comes to market incentives for sustainable bio-based products, again, I have to highlight that we focus on sustainable ones. So you should first make sure the value chain you're choosing is actually really sustainable, and also apply, for example, LCA analysis for it. And then at national, regional, local level, support green public procurement in order to stimulate the growth of sustainable bio-based product market, because like it's a very big sector, the public sector. It has a lot of purchasing power, like 38%. It's really an important step to boost the market. And of course, using EU guidance for bio-based products and procurement. And then at EU and national level, introduce VAT reductions for bio-based products, for example, biochemicals, and other also environmental friendly products and services in the EU. So you can give an advantage in comparison to bio-based alternatives, but also for really products produced in the EU. When it comes to public awareness and support, this is, we hear it a lot, but it's really crucial to have at regional, local level the financing of well-developed continuous environmental education programs on different topics such as food waste prevention, but also separate collection, anti-littering, but also the benefits of bio-based products, because there can also be some reluctance for certain products, especially foods coming from waste, or like you also already heard about the insects produced from bio-waste, what's it called? The flies, yeah. No, it's not dragonflies. Soldier flies, thank you. Thank you very much. And at regional, local level, monitor the success of awareness-raising campaigns using common indicators for municipal waste management is also important, and also to have a target of a minimum amount of money to be spent on activities, on educational activities per inhabitant, and also monitor the success of the evolution of bio-waste collection and also the bio-waste quality and so on. When it comes to stakeholder involvement, the recommendation is at regional or local level to promote a participative approach by enshrining stakeholder involvement in legislation, meaning, for example, in the waste management programs. This is, for example, the case in Vienna, but it's also done in Catalonia. So it's, if you have any important decision, like constructing a new waste treatment plant, but also changing the collection systems, really involve a broad variety of stakeholders to it. And then at EU and regional level, promote technology and innovation clusters and network platforms. Here we have one example, the biomethane industrial partnership for biomethane, but there are also many other bio-based products. And so far, like, it's really also important to have as many countries as possible as members, like, and really spread the word to make it more powerful, also these kind of platforms, and to involve policymakers, researchers, and market players, of course. Now I'm going to give a bit more specific examples, in this case for the Pazardzhik province. So first of all, as Amalia already explained nicely before, at national level, it would be important to fund local environmental impact assessments to determine the range of forestry residues that must remain underground in order to preserve soil quality and biodiversity, because you cannot just collect all. And then also the range of the residues that can be used to produce new bio-based products. And also, like, for example, in Southern European countries, also like Bulgaria, the risk of forest fires in relationship to climate change is increasing. So this is also a factor which needs to be included in the future more and more. And at national level, introduce a fee and incentive scheme to promote the pre-treatment and sustainable collection of forestry waste to be used for biorefineries. And in many regions, also in Bulgaria, like in Pazardzhik, like the terrain can be quite difficult for collection. So it's more expensive to collect forestry residues in a mountainous area. So that's why it's often left on the ground. And also, yeah, also with a view of reducing the cost of firefighting and reforestation of the fires, because these are costs you might not think about immediately, but they might appear. And this is a recommendation related to bioenergy, but can also be related to other bio-based products at EU level. Introduce incentives for bioenergy compared to fossil energy. It's also connected to a biomethane chain, but I'm explaining it here. This can either be done by introducing disincentives for fossil energy, for example, increasing taxes, or by introducing an incentive mechanism based on carbon footprint assessment. And this assessment should be done according to the International Sustainability and Carbon Certification. And it means that the lower the carbon footprint of products or bioenergy, the higher the price incentive should be for this product. So to boost the market, because usually it's more expensive to produce it. When it comes to the metropolitan city of Naples, first of all, we recommend at national level to introduce financial incentives and administrative and technical support for companies to use the byproducts internally for the production of new products in order to avoid the classification also as waste. This can be done also for example of coffee silver skin, which can be used inside of the same company being transformed into a functional food. And then it can be used in bakery industry, but also many other industries. And also at regional and local level, incentivize local industrial symbiosis, meaning the physical exchange of resources, energy, and or byproducts among different industries, like in industrial parks, for example. So that you also reduce transportation and efficiency, and it has many, many benefits. Then further at national level, set up collection systems for agro-industrial organic waste. So far, often they end up being mixed with municipal bio-waste, or just directly being composted or sent into anaerobic digestion plants, but these are very valuable waste streams, and if you collect them separately, you can produce very high value products out of them. But of course, they need to be collected separately before. And give financial incentives to companies or businesses to collect and store. Also, the storage is a point to certain waste streams. And it can also be a very small waste stream, also an urban one, like spent coffee grounds in cafeterias. We had this during a living lab, and then a stakeholder gave the advice of using, for example, soft transports, such as bicycle collection, of going from cafeteria to cafeteria, and spent coffee grounds you can use also for like a big variety of things, from extracting oil to growing mushrooms and so on and so forth. So that's a very big potential here. And this is very important, connected to novel foods, because as I said, it's food that wasn't existing before 1997, and you can't just introduce a new product to the market. You need a health risk assessment, which is a very important thing, and it's done by the European Food and Safety Authority, EFSA. But, and this is a barrier, it takes minimum 2 years to do that, and it takes a lot of time and effort and also money, because you need a lot of laboratory analysis to have some independent scientific advice on existing and emerging risks and potentials and so on. So this is this can be especially a barrier for small and medium-sized companies because they might not have a big research department or like the funding for these kind of things. And finally, I'm going to give just a few recommendations for the metropolitan area of Barcelona. As I mentioned before, they have a lot of different recommendations. I'm focusing here now on separate biowaste collection. First of all, this is especially related to Spain. Introduce mandatory door-to-door and smart bin collection systems, and the introduction of new open bins, as you see here on the picture on the left-hand side, should be banned, should be prohibited. And on the right-hand side, you see an example of the city of Milan, which is very known for that because it's a large city. It has more than 1 million inhabitants, but they successfully managed to introduce door-to-door collection in a system with 80% of the population living in high-rise buildings. So this is a big achievement. So they distributed this ventilated kitchen bins, they distributed wheel bins for collection, and also the compostable bags for collection. So something like that should be definitely also applied to the metropolitan area of Barcelona. But we have an expert sitting here and going to answer to your questions later. And at local level, door-to-door collection also needs controls in order to guarantee good quality also of the waste collected. So not only the biowaste itself should be checked, but also the content of the residual waste, because if there's still a large amount of biowaste inside of the residual waste, it also shows that whoever didn't really take collection seriously, and it's actually binding, like it's an obligation for citizens to collect. And very important, introduce and really also execute the fines for non-compliance, because this is a very strong driver. And at national level, introduce the mandatory application of pay-as-you-throw, of the pay-as-you-throw principle. This is, on the one hand, incentivizing the minimizing waste generation in general, but also really promoting separate collection, not only of biowaste, but also of other waste streams, such as plastics or metals and so on. And then connected to compost, one of the products we have in our value chain, we strongly recommend to, at national and regional level in Spain, introduce stricter limits for biowaste impurities. So at least 5% for Catalonia and 10% for Spain by 2027. So far it's, right now it's 20% the limit, and then it will be 15%, but that's still way too high. Because low impurity levels are very important for obtaining high quality compost, which can actually be sold and is a valuable product. At national level, integrate higher minimum biogas targets and also higher biomethane targets into the Spanish biogas roadmap 2022. Because we also have the Repower EU plan with a minimum target for biomethane production, which is pretty ambitious, 35 BCM by 2035. And yeah, Spain so far has a big potential. It's also a big country, but the current targets are pretty low. However, Italy has a lot of good practice examples in this connection. And last but not least, it's a very new thing in Spain. Like, it has been introduced recently. It's called the Guarantee of Origin certificate, and it's it shows when and where a certain energy was produced, the type of production facility and the energy source, and it shows the percentage of renewable energy of the total energy you consume. So it can give can demand for renewable energy sources, also for biomethane in the local gas net. So thank you very much, and I give the floor to my colleague Lorraine from WaysTUP.
Thank you, Caroline. So there are some policy recommendations. If you feel like you could use more policy recommendations, I really invite you to check the website. We've got lots of reports there, more details. But we also know that surprisingly, some people don't really like to read long reports on policy recommendations. So one part of the project was about trying to find a better way to replicate the project's findings. And this is what List and Lorraine did during the project. She will introduce what we thought about to help replication in a more user-friendly way. Lorraine, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean-Benoit. And so I will now present the Biocircularcities guideline, and more specifically, the web tool we developed in the framework of this project. And it's really closely linked to what Karine and Amalia just presented. So just a first slide to describe really quickly the methodology approach we take into account to develop the web tool. So first, we did an analysis of the scope of the global circularity and bioeconomy concept, and it was associated to European target and also incentive. And we analyze the correlations that can be established between those different aspects. A second analysis was done to define the main driver and barriers towards the development of sustainable circular bioeconomy value chain. This was done thanks to literature review of several available technology, but also by review the policy framework at the European level, but also the local pilot level. And following that, we review all existing supporting approaches and guidelines, but also tools, also in order to position the guideline in the framework of this project, and also to refine the objective of the final tool I will present. So all this information are documented in the report where we explain the decision tree background logistic we did to develop the web tool. And with this web tool, of course, we will provide a practical guide for the users. So objective and the scope of this guideline and web tool is first to define the target group. So here it will be bio-waste managers, but also technicians that for the reporting to public, but also we target some private decision makers. So in that case, we take into account the different feedstock of pilot areas, and one big question is how to avoid landfilling and to create an added value of this feedstock. And also what could be the valorization option and the most suitable ones to create this added value. So for this background logic behind the guidelines, so we build it by using the result and feedback from the different pilot area, but also by using the analysis we've done on policy context at European and local level, and also by using the literature review analysis. And in that context, so we developed the web tool that helps to identify the most suitable biocircular technology that have to be considered in the specific context of the pilot area. So here it's a screenshot of the main page of the web tool, and you can access to the tool via the address in the presented here, so bcc.list.lu. And here it's more to summarize the background logic behind the web tool. So we identified a portfolio of the most suitable technology in the context of the pilot area. And both for this technology, but also under the context of the territory or urban areas, it was these two aspects was characterized by using several influence criteria that usually can be a barrier or an advantage when you have to define the strategic choices and also to define the best management of the value chain. So here it's a scheme to summarize a bit how we develop this background and the tool. And for the technology, yeah, it's a slide to present the 14 technology we consider in the tool, and it has been identified in different types of processes, and also we also associated each technology to 6 types of bio-based products that can be interesting. So how it works in practice? So the user will have to answer to a batch of questions that was divided in 4 different steps. So the first step is related to all information related to the feedstock and the current system characterization in place to manage this feedstock. And then the user will have some question to answer related to the type of bio-waste product targeted to improve the value chain. And the 2 other steps are related to the environmental performance of the product, and then what concerning the political but also economic incentives. And once the user answers to the question, you will have the result page where you will find the ranking of the different technology identified in the tool. And just a last slide from my side to present the tools of our database. As we presented, were 4 steps of question. And here we summarize information taken into account and the most important for this different step. And as I say, after you answer to the different question, you will have the result page and the ranking of the different technologies. So we have created a score for this different technology, but you can also see which technology are disqualified after you answer the different question. So it's, and of course, the ranking depends of several information. So the type, the quantity, but also quality of the feedstock, the specification of environmental performances. Is there some economic or political incentive? And we also take into account for this tool the potential job creation related to the different technology, and is there some possibility to recycle, reuse, or recover the product? For each 14th technology, you can have also more information. So you have just to click on more information button, and you will have information related to economic, environmental, and also social information. And it's information related to literature review. It's not appear here in on the screenshot, but we also included in the result page the general recommendation that are come from the LCC evaluation done by my colleague. I think that's it. Photo.
Thanks a lot, Lauren. There will be the possibility to try the tool after the second roundtable. So for the people here, I really invite you to have a look, check it, and tell us what you think about it. For the people online, you can online and try it, but we can't really talk to you when you do that. I know that we're a bit late, but are there any questions in the chat? No? Are there any questions in the audience? Don't be shy. Yes?
I think it's for providers. You can improve your technology, or if you have ways to process, you can go and look which technology applies. And it looks very similar, whether it is kind of coordinated.
So in case of stake for bio-waste, it has been taken into account in the tool for some technology for which it was difficult, or we have no literature review. So it has been also integrated in that tool. So it has been managed, but my colleague who also work on the tool is not there, but maybe.
I'd say something. John Bosch, I'm not sure how it's pronounced. Like he was involved in the Tech for Bio-Waste project and member of our advisory board. So we had quite a strong exchange on that. So it's very interconnected, and we also tried not to duplicate anything. So. Melanie Guiton, who is not here today, as well as my predecessor, Rosaria Kifari. Like there were also people involved who are not here today, unfortunately. But yeah, like she really compared all existing tools and technology.
No, it's you summarize that. Yes, it was part of the methodology to create, to develop the guideline and the web tool, to have a clear overview of all tools existing and to avoid duplication.
We did a webinar actually with Tech for Bio-Waste. So if you want to have an overview of the database, they did a 10-minute presentation where we, together with the web tool actually. Yep.
Also, we use this technology, like this data visual technology that we already included in our web tool. But what is the advantage, or what is making a difference in our tool is basically as it screens this social, economic, and political aspects, basically territorial, and then provides this technological solution based on those criteria. So basically, we have to collaborate. Like we made a synergy with providers. So the difference is that you have an extra layers compared to the tools, but the principle of the tools are the same. There's more or less, I would say that the principle of the tool are the same, which is that we have also based on these criteria, which shows what are the because on the database of the basically you have all the tools on that database, but here is on the criteria, then we show what are the best technological options.
There is actually a question from the chat. Someone would like to know who would be the future possible users of the tool and for which decision making.
But for the tool first, it's important to precise it's not ready to implement business plans. It's mainly to give an idea of what would be the most suitable technologies that can be implemented for the specific feedstock and waste value chain we want to improve. So maybe, for example, so you can have the same score for several technologies.
more information, and input of the tool can be also a way to help the user to decide what would be the most suitable. That's why we put more information related to economic, social, environmental aspect. So it's just give first clue of the user what could be the best thing, but not take it as a, yes, this is this technology and not another one.
Thank you. And another question again from online participants. So it's Violetta Tuleli, who is writing that she's doing research on the circularity of organic waste of various types and wastewater. She would like to know if in our pilot projects and experience, we managed to quantify the waste flows and calculate biogas biomethane production for the various types of waste. If there are works of this type, where is it possible to find them?
Thank you for the question. Regarding the data, we didn't have the possibility to collect primary data because this project is based on the idea that we need to interact with the local stakeholders. And of course, we analyzed the current business as usual situation based on primary data that the local partner provide us. But regarding the alternative scenarios, we made a literature review also in this case, and we analyze some scenarios that are based on secondary data coming from literature or specific LCA, LCC databases. Of course, we think that our analysis, it can be useful as a benchmark for further detailed study that need to be, of course, carried out in order to use primary data, specific primary data for the local territory. But in our idea, the analysis is useful also for other European context because they can at least understand how it is possible to manage the 3 different bio-waste analyzed, and they at least know that there are circular patterns that can be implemented in other territory, but of course field experiment primary data are needed in order to confirm our analysis. And unfortunately, no data are available, but if they are interested, of course, there are available the main results obtained for the current situation. For the current situation, yes, we have data, primary data. For the alternative one, we made a research based on secondary data.
Good with the questions? Okay. Well, I think you're already late, so maybe we'll close the roundtable, give some time for the coffee break. I propose that... Okay. Gail is deciding everything, so I just comply. Maybe we can say 11:30, we are back there, also for the online people. Stay hydrated, it's really warm weather for end of September in Brussels. And we'll see you in more than 10 minutes to discuss the pilot territories. Thanks. Just a short introduction to this second roundtable. We've been hearing about the theory, the research, the scientific part, let's say, and now we'll go to the harsh and concrete reality and see how all those findings will be or is going to be implemented in the near future. And I've got a very nice panel of partners and also an external person coming, a guest speaker. I will introduce them to you in a short while. This we try to have something a bit different for this session, meaning that we won't have long slides on everything. Every speaker will focus on 3 key ideas and discuss about them. and then we'll have time for discussions and confront our views and see how they can inspire you as well. So we'll have a look at the journey of the 3 pilot territories that you hear about this morning, starting with the metropolitan area of Napoli, and then we'll go to Pazardzhik in Bulgaria, and then in Barcelona. And then we'll hear about the WaysTUP project, focusing on stakeholder, citizen engagement, behavior, more the behavioral aspect of change, of transition. But I won't be too long, and I will pass the floor to my colleague Angelo Venezia from the metropolitan area of Napoli. City, sorry. Yeah. City of Napoli. I'm starting to get corrected right now, right at the beginning. And he will tell us about the pilot they are doing on agro-food and the key ideas. So I will give you the floor. I don't know if I will give you this one.
Okay, thank you, Jean-Benoit. Hi, everybody. I'm Angelo Venezia from Metropolitan City of Naples. Metropolitan City of Naples took from Provincia di Napoli in 2014. It has 3 million of inhabitants, like area of Barcelona. In the first slide, yes, we can see where we focalized. We focalized on coffee industry. Why? Because in an area of Metropolitan City of Naples, there are a lot of coffee industry. So we have this bio-waste. We can see the silver skin is what we obtain after coffee is roasted. And this is a cost now for the coffee industries, because it's an economic cost and also an environmental cost, because they have to dispose. We investigate if we can use this bio-waste in another way. If it's possible to reuse this bio-waste in after transformation, sterilization in a bakery industry, so to obtain a functional product in the bakery industry. And in this way, it would become not a cost. It would be, as we have studied, an advantage. And this slide, it shows we can obtain the bread. We can obtain the bread because we can save the flour, 5% of flour, using bio-waste after transformation. So we discussed this with our stakeholders in the 3 living labs in Naples and the final living labs. The stakeholder from university, from not governmental organization, entrepreneur, particularly in the coffee industry, and they give us a lot of feedback. And we discuss also if it's possible to realize this project. Naturally, this project was studied with ENEA, with the LCA and LCC analysis, and we give also the results to show how it's possible to reuse the waste. And the message that we obtain, that from bio-waste, it's possible to obtain something to eat. This is a very important message. And the analysis of ENEA has demonstrated that it's also economical convenient and environmental convenient. Okay.
Thank you very much. Yes. Moving on to the region of Pazardzhik, we've got Georgi Simeonov with us. He's from the regional energy agency of the Pazardzhik region. And yeah, as you could see this morning, this is a rather different value chain, forestry waste, a rather different type of stakeholders and problematic. And he will tell us also about the journey of the region of Pazardzhik and how they are planning to move forward with the management of forests. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Jean-Benoit, for this introduction. My name is Georgi Simeonov. I'm working for the Regional Energy Agency of Pazardzhik. It's one of the three pilot regions. Pazardzhik province is one of the three pilot regions in Biocircularcities project. Unlike the other two pilots, we represent a typical rural region where we have 12 municipalities. All of them are considered as rural municipalities. We have relatively low density of population, but big territories. About 60% of the is covered by forest. Of course, we have also well-developed agricultural sector. But after the first living lab with different stakeholders from our region, and also involving our partners from the project, we decided that we shall continue to explore more in details the chain related to forestry biomass. This is why we put the slide. This interesting picture, it represents the wood coming from wood residues coming from our forestry industry. Obviously, we heard a lot of interesting information from our technical partners. I will not go into details into the different studies which we carried out during the project. I really believe that these studies and these tools, these works will be used in our future works, especially with our stakeholders. But what happens here? After we have these wood residues, it must be grinded into very small pieces, and we received wood chips. Wood chips can be used for several different branches, for several different industries. Of course, it can be directly used as an energy source and produce energy, but it can be further used by a pellet industry to produce pellets. And as evidenced by Biocircularcities, it could be used also in biorefinery industry, which was one of the pilot scenario, which was very interesting for us. It is something totally new for us to produce biochemicals from these residues. And we presented this also to our stakeholders in the third living lab and also at the final conference in Bulgaria. Just to show the next slide. It is symbolizing the involvement of stakeholders from Bulgaria. I would say very important to involve all different stakeholders from the whole value chain of biomass residues. We must have representatives from the production sector, from the extraction sector, from the administration sector. So we really try to involve all of them, not only just by public sector, but we try to involve a lot representatives also from the NGO, from the energy agencies. Obviously, we have a good network of colleagues from the energy agencies, which were supporting us during the whole project. From the public sector, we try to involve as many as possible municipal administrations and also forestry experts and environment experts. So our general advice, of course, is that the key to success is to involve all these stakeholders in the value chain and try to provide them the project outcomes and also to receive them feedback during the different tasks which we had to implement during the project. The third picture symbolizes energy valorization. It's taken from a good practice from Bulgaria. It's region Bansko. It's touristic region where they several years ago where they developed a biomass plant. It was supplying heat energy to several touristic buildings. And what is interesting with this is that these touristic buildings reported about 30% less consumption in energy costs in comparison to their traditional consumption, which was natural gas. And natural gas a few years ago was really cheap in Bulgaria. So it was really very positive to introduce this. Of course, the other alternative scenario, which Amalia explained quite in details related to biorefinery industry, to production of several specific chemicals, is very interesting to us. We presented this in detail to our community, and we hope to continue working on this scenario, also taking into account some policy recommendations coming from foundation and leadership. There was one very interesting that how we can incentivize some schemes to introduce this approach, these biochemicals coming from the forestry sector. This is also which we have to think with our stakeholders at local and regional level, how we can continue and incentivize this scenario specifically for our region. But of course, it could be replicated also in other European regions which have a lot of forests, a lot of biomass coming from the forests. So it was really very useful for us to participate in such a research project, which brings a lot of added value to our community. Thank you very much for your attention and looking forward to your questions.
Thank you, Georgie. And moving on to Barcelona now, focusing on the more maybe common waste fraction that we all producing and sorting, household food waste and municipal waste food waste. We've got Victor Mitians from the metropolitan area of Barcelona. He will tell us about the work on the project and the focus on municipal food waste.
Thank you, Jean-Benoit. Yeah, I come from the metropolitan area of Barcelona. The metropolitan area of Barcelona works very tightly with the 36 municipalities that are part of this area, of this geographic area. And we have 3.3 million inhabitants with a lot of different activities, industrial, commercial, and especially the touristic industry. So we have a lot of issues to tackle. They asked to put 3 key ideas on the table to start the discussion. And I wanted to start with another idea, an overarching idea that our project officer, Luisa Mascia, put on the table before. And is that the local authorities are in the front line of the transition towards a more circular economy. Okay, that is true for each and every of the waste streams. But what makes a special bio-waste stream is that probably public administration is the only one that can deal with bio-waste. All the other waste streams can have extended producer responsibility schemes, so the responsibility is shared. Whereas in bio-waste, it's only us, the public administration, that can deal and have the whole scope of stakeholders, actors, and ideas to be implemented. Having said that, when we talk about creating value using bio-waste, I will follow a very classical approach, which is prevention, collection, and treatment. But classicals are classicals for some reason. So prevention, the first step in order to create value in the bio-waste chain is to address waste prevention. According to our data in the metropolitan area of Barcelona, around 7 to 10% of the bio-waste that we collect comes from food wastage. That means that we could feed a city of around 80 to 90,000 inhabitants a whole year if we would be able to reduce food waste to zero. That's not possible. That's an aspirational target, but it gives you an idea of the importance of waste prevention. Anyway, food waste prevention. Anyway, it's a difficult task even for public administration because the chain of the food, it's very complex, and it involves a very wide spectrum of stakeholders, and even of products. It's not the same dealing with fish waste than with vegetables or fruit or whatever. So it's a very complex issue, but it needs to be addressed before moving to the other steps of the chain. Second idea, if we want to create value with bio-waste, we need better and high quality collection schemes. This is needed to create higher value. It was said before that in Spain, a limit of 10% of impurities in the bio-waste is expected according to the law. But this means, at least with our knowledge and with the technologies that we use in the metropolitan area, that we lose 20% of all the bio-waste that come into our facilities. So every percentage point of impurity yields double the yields of the bio-waste flow. So it's very important to be able to provide high quality collection systems. And now in our region, we have decided that open bins are a no-go area. So we highly recommend that no one that has still to implement the bio-waste collection uses these open bins, because they are a source of impurities and they collect very low rates of bio-waste. So the discussion is between door-to-door collection systems, which are quite common, especially in Northern Europe, or smart bins. But there's a discussion going on. For instance, every time that I come to Brussels, I really think that the door-to-door collection system must be probably works, can it be improved, but I'm sure that Barcelona wouldn't stand it. No, not a single politician of Barcelona would remain in office for 1 week after seeing the stream of bags. So there's this discussion going on, and we will see where we end up in the next years. And the third idea is that, we have to deal with better, or we have to produce higher value products from the bio-waste. And in our metropolitan complex, high density of population, high density of uses, composting is out of the question. No, we cannot afford to find like 20, 30 locations for composting facilities, and the political struggle that this means. So we rely on 3-4 facilities, large facilities that use anaerobic digestion. But this is also, we think, part of the past. So the future is moving to biorefineries, and the upgrade of biogas to methane could be a first step. But we can go further, and we can produce much higher value products, such as enzymes. We could even think of producing this larvae for alimentation, feeding. So that's the idea. We have to reduce food waste. We have to increase and to deploy high quality collection systems. And we have to move to this idea of leaving compost behind and trying to produce as much high value products as possible using this biorefinery approach.
Thanks a lot, Victor. Well, I can tell you that the question of waste bags is also in discussion in Brussels, actually. We're moving on to our guest speaker for this roundtable. It's Laura Temmerman from the Free University of Brussels. And Laura has a background as a psychologist, which is a bit different from the other speakers I think I'm from this morning. But she tackled a very overlooked and important issue of behavior change, because we sometimes see it as a kind of magical thing that powerless. And we know that there's probably some tools to overcome that. And you represent today the WaysTUP project. She has a sister project that is ending or has ended already. Okay. Where you supported some cities in transitioning to more circular system, and you helped them on this complicated topic of citizen participation, or to make them part of the system. And you also got this treatment from us, but yeah, we'd like to hear more about your experience on the topic. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. My name is Laura. As was said, I worked on the WaysTUP project, where our work package specifically focused on behavior change. There were 7 pilots in our project, 7 technical pilots, but we worked with 3 of them, including Barcelona, actually, where I work with your colleague. And working on this project really felt as this picture. I don't know if you can see, there's a missing piece of the puzzle. It really felt like we were working on this missing piece of the puzzle, which is the social component of the bioeconomy, the circular economy. It's not specific to the bioeconomy, this lack, this gap. It's also in sustainability. You know, you have the triple bottom line of sustainability. Yeah, environment is addressed, business is addressed, social components until now was still traditionally, historically kind of left behind. It's still the case in the bioeconomy. If you look at the literature, social components are still far behind. So that's what we were looking at. And for that, we work with, as I said, 3 pilots, 3 different pilots, which is a key here. So we had Barcelona, we also had Valencia, and we also had Athens. They're all communities of citizens, of course, but they're very different from each other. They have different collection schemes, they have different attitudes regarding bio-waste and its use, they have different norms. And although they're all citizen and you know the same psychological construct apply to them, and you have those behavioral models that apply to them, the way it translates on the local, on the community level is very different. And this was the first part of the project that we tried to tackle, is try to understand which are the actual elements that are important in each of those cities to actually have an impact on the behavior. So we conducted survey with each community, experts interview, focus group with them to better understand the local situation there. And it led us to develop this behavior change toolkit that had, if I'm not mistaken, 7 different type of tools that were developed. And they were all thought to have a differential impact on some aspect linked to the behavior, where the pilots were then responsible for the implementation of the tool, so they could pick and choose the ones that would fit better with their local community based on the results that we had previously collected. So the idea was really to provide a comprehensive tool that could be applied, and that could be applied to different settings, and that could be applied to different communities. So that's basically what I wanted to say today. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Before we open the floor to questions, maybe I've got a few very short questions to all of you. We'll start with you, Laura. I was thinking, since you worked on Barcelona, and yeah, we see your neighbor is also interested in this case, Yeah, and Barcelona, you will tell us more about that, but you're in the process of changing the collection system, and we know that changing collection system, even light changes, like people don't like it, but when you completely change how they deal with their waste, usually they hate it, regardless, it's more convenient. Do you have any insight on how to help in the change of behaviors, or how to make it well accepted or easier for everyone?
So just based on my knowledge, because this is not something that we investigated actually in the project, that was, I think, more parts of your role in your project. The type of study that we performed here and that I tried to explain, this type of performative study that happens before the change in understanding what are the current barrier to the behavior, what are the potential barrier to the behavior, are really important. It wasn't in Barcelona, but in Athens, for example, this performative study really helped us understand that there were aspects to the behavior that were not actually discussed in the literature at all, which was that in the municipality that we were investigating, they have a drop-off scheme. So they sort at home and then they have to go in the street to drop off their bio-waste back. And there the issue was that, of course, Athens is very hot. There are issues already at home, but they were overcoming it because they were very willing to sort their bio-waste and to contribute. The issue actually was in the dropping off part, because there weren't enough bins in the streets. They sometimes were just discarding the waste that they had sorted in the residual bin. So really having a specific look at each component of the behavior, all of the steps that need to happen for them to complete it, is very important if you want to have a successful start. And of course, iterative loop are always necessary, but if you want to already start with a good buy-in from your citizens, it's to have this kind of
Okay, so it's about dissecting the different behaviors and then trying to find the nudges. And for waste management, I see that can be, like, I would say easy, but easier because like the waste is more and more centralized in places. Did you also address more, individual behaviors, like for waste prevention, for instance, their shopping habits, what they do in the kitchen, you can't see it, you can't control it, and do you have tools also to understand those?
So unfortunately, no.
Oh.
We did not focus on prevention. Of course, this is, let's say, explained in the deliverable. As you said, prevention, of course, is best. It's always the first step that you need to take. Nevertheless, there will always be bio-waste you cannot prevent. That will happen because you're going to peel your potatoes and you're not going to eat the inside of your apple. So we really wanted to focus on that idea that even though prevention measures can be very successful and are to be taken as the first step, waste sorting will always be necessary. And so we really focused on that.
Okay, thanks a lot. Victor, since food waste sorting is necessary after all, and since we've got a sorting obligation coming, I know that many municipalities are like wondering what kind of system they should put in place, or the one already having a system will also question those systems. And I know that you're in the process of changing things, moving from open containers to door, in some cases, having in parallel smart bins. I think it would be interesting for the audience to know a bit more about your feedback on the changes, the impact of the different collection system, or you deal with it. So, yeah, if you can share that with us, that would be very interesting.
Okay, so as I said, we metropolitan areas share responsibilities for waste management with municipalities. Municipalities are responsible for the collection of waste, and the metropolitan area is responsible of treatment of this waste. So we work very closely to try and develop and help them to choose which is the best collection system for them to implement. Okay, that involves dealing with many barriers or challenges. The first one is that not only politicians, but also technicians have some prejudices when it comes to trying and figure out what can and what cannot be done in their municipalities. Normally they say, no, door-to-door is a no way to follow, so it's a no-go area. And then we have like to deconstruct this like fear of going somewhere that will create technical problems, that will put their politicians into trouble. So this is the first step. The second step, of course, it's the politicians, which have the same fears, but even worse. And what we have done with municipalities is to like create working groups with similar municipalities. In the metropolitan area, we have like 4,000 inhabitants municipalities, in the mountains with low-rise houses or unifamiliar houses, and like very dense suburbs with 10 heights of flats. So we have to deal differently with different municipalities, and we try to help them decide. This is what we have done in the last, let's say, 2 years. But now we are at the point of really converting the ideal model into something that is operative. And here is where, especially at political level and maybe social level, the discussion between door-to-door and smart bin appears. And this is the point where we are. So, for instance, Barcelona started to implement door-to-door collection in some areas, but they faced a reaction of some of the neighbors, probably not only because of the system, but because of the opposition to the ruling party. I don't know if you are familiar, but in Barcelona there was traditionally the Social Democrats ruling, and then in 10 years ago, with the travel of the crisis and so on, it appeared like a more left-leaned alternative, and this created like a reaction of the establishment, so to call. And so it's normally different layers of problems. And now we don't know what Barcelona will do, but probably smart bins will appear as a softer alternative. But then the question appears, will we lose the really high quality of bio-waste and the high quantity of bio-waste that we collected? We were below 100 kilo per inhabitant a year, and with 3% of impurities in Barcelona. So that's amazing. And probably if we move back to smart bins, we will have some losses. But this is the state of the discussion right now.
Okay. And what you say goes to something I heard about another city changing. I think it was for glass, going for door-to-door to bring banks. And that the same issue, that the big step was convincing the decision makers. And then when they convinced them and set the system, the citizens were, okay, like it's fine for us. Like, is it the same for you? The population, they reacted positively to the new system? I think that since you've got increasing performances, they did, but...
Yeah, that was one of the fears that politicians had. And the reality is that people, when you explain them, when you give them alternatives in order to make their everyday life acceptably easy, and when they see that there are no rats in the street, that the street is clean because there are no more containers, no more like drop-off places and so on, they accept it quite good. There's only a minority, the ones, but there's a noisy minority. And I think that the social networks and hatred speech and so on doesn't help to implement this more like advanced politics when it comes to waste management.
Okay, thanks a lot. Georgie, question for you? No? Yeah, you work with completely different target audience, like the people dealing with forests, also the municipalities.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a bit about this particular experience of dealing with forestry management? Was it easy to involve them? Was it complicated? How did you do that?
Yeah, well, at the beginning of the project, we didn't know exactly which chain we will select. We were hesitant between agricultural also, which was very well developed in Pazardzhik province and sector. But after the first living lab and together with the technical partners, we decided to concentrate on the forestry sector and biomass residues coming from the forestry industry. It's very specific sector. We had to involve very specific knowledge and experts from this sector, especially when we started to work on the LCA and LCC analysis, where we had some information which we didn't know. It turned out that in Bulgaria, these managers, forestry managers, are very connected to municipalities. And municipalities are very close to our energy agency. We work constantly with them and with the connections which we have. Actually, the 12 municipalities are members of our agency. It was established about 20 years ago, exactly with the support of the municipalities. So by knowing these key players at a local level, it was easy later on to approach also forestry managers, where we had really many questions to them, especially connected to this analysis, how they manage the biomass which remains after the forestry, what quantities remain, what quantities are being exported from the forest, for what purposes, etc., etc. Many specific questions, but to do this by our connections with the municipalities.
So, thank you. Thanks a lot, and yeah, thank you for all the municipalities. Then, and I will open the floor. But question to you at last. As a coffee drinker, I really want to eat that bread made out of coffee silver skin. So when will it be able to do that? What's your plan to make it concrete?
Yes, I hope it would be realized, the project. It's important, a real strong synergy between the local stakeholders, so the industry coffee and bakery industry. In this way, I can say that last July, also our partner in consortium, Enea, supported this synergy. And this meeting shows that it's possible to find someone interested in to invest in to realize this plant, because there is the bio-waste, there is one industry interested to use this bio-waste transformed. So it's possible to realize. Of course, it's also important that after they obtain the bread with the bio-waste, it's important to inform the population that they can eat this. This is healthy. It's not dangerous for their health. And also important to reduce also the authorization to realize this plant and the project. Now there are a lot of authorization also from sanitary sector.
Okay, maybe something interesting for the audience, because it's not always easy to make private players like that invest in technologies. Or did you convince them? Was it the benefits that we saw this morning, or like were they convinced in the first place? Or did you convince them to move forward with that?
They realized that for the producer of bio-waste, it's a benefit. economic, and also environment.
Okay, so easy. Are there any questions in the audience or on the chat? Yes, there are. Ah. Wow.
Okay, so it's Violetta again. Just out of curiosity, she would like to know, I mean, she understands that the presence of impurities in open bins is a problem, but couldn't the fact that they are in specific points of the city be an advantage, at least logistical, compared to door-to-door collection? And in terms, for example, of transport emission savings, if there are any advantage from having open bins? I guess it's more for Victor.
Yeah, this is part of the discussion. So the trade-off between energy and collection efficiency and impurities. We saw also in the LC analysis made by Enea that, yeah, the amount of this that you collect bio-waste is crucial to obtain benefits from switching from one system to another. And I think that this would make sense, especially in those areas with low density. So you have to drive along many kilometers of streets or roads to obtain the bio-waste. But in a dense city, the discussion in this regard becomes more levered. But yeah, for instance, it would make sense in municipalities with a lot of urbanizations. I don't know how to say that. City garden or whatever. So to disconnect one of the routes and just instead of collecting, let's say 20 a household, you just put a smart bin there, and then you rely that people will use it properly. So yeah, that's something that we take into account.
Okay, thank you. And the second question from Liliana Nikita from Fadi in Romania. She would like to have some advice about how to find the right balance between high capture rate of bio-waste and low impurities in bio-waste separate collection flow.
When I know that, I will tell her. No, probably it's a matter. Yeah, I mean, there's a trade-off between door-to-door collection that yields a lot of amount and with good quality, and the smart bins where the user is more anonymous, and anonymity creates more problems. We don't do the same when we are at home than when we are on the street. So this change of behavior according to the degree of anonymity that provides each collection system, it's the key. So probably in a matter of years, the two systems can tend to be more or less similar. But as of now, we believe that door-to-door is the way to go. But it's difficult technically, economically, and especially politically.
If I can add to that in terms of purity of the bio-waste collected, of course, an important element to it is education and awareness raising also within your population. I don't know if it was in Barcelona or in one of the other pilots, but there was the analysis that was conducted, and one of the highest missorted items were diapers. I don't know if it was in Barcelona or somewhere else, just because the population had associated diapers and waste within diapers with bio-waste, so they were missorting the items into bio-waste bags. So also, again, an analysis of what happens, what is the most missorted items can help, of course, to increase the purity. And that goes then hand in hand with education, awareness. Also, one of the tools that we had to increase the purity of the biowaste sorted were little stickers that you can put on your bid that clearly explains what can be sorted, but also what cannot be sorted within those bins.
Thanks a lot. Yes, Bill, please.
Yeah, I would say that I agree that education is necessary, but I think that it's not sufficient instrument to provide high quality collection. I mean, otherwise open bins would work. We have spent at least in I would say in Catalonia, like 20 to 30 years. So that's 1-2 generations of users of the collection system. We have explained them many different ways. We have tried different strategies. And the thing is that, yeah, education works, but convenience, it's very convenient. No, I mean, if it's easy for you to do it badly, then you would be more prone to do it badly.
Yes, sure.
Now, first of all, thank you very much, because it was overall a very interesting day, and also the format of having this lively discussion made it easier to follow. So under the perspective of the funding agency, I said I think it's a very successful project. But I would be interested, just a very quick question, because we have some public authorities, the representative of the energy agency, to know beyond the project and beyond what the project will do to exploit the results. This is a collective work. What is the one thing you think the project brought you at the local level and that you will want to continue or discontinue, or to take on, not just on a personal level, but maybe as part of your organization, of your, I'm not trying to strip a promise out of you, but it's just to, be able to also tell, this project had an impact, and I heard firsthand from the local players that this work and this is the one thing they're gonna push. So I'm myself from Naples, so I'm very happy that, to think that project we funded had a very positive impact on a difficult town, lovely town. So if you can share your ideas, it would be nice.
Someone has to start, so.
Okay, so maybe we start with Pazardzhik then. We are, as you mentioned, a typical energy agency with expertise on energy efficiency, renewable energy sources. So participation in this project brought us really totally new knowledge, especially on bio-waste management. We took also information from the other two pilots, best practices, which we are trying now to transfer to our local community. We definitely intend to continue to exploit on the one of the two pilot scenarios, which was dedicated to biorefinery and to biochemical products. Definitely the environmental and economical impact both are quite positive. The analysis, the details of our technical partner, and they approved that. This is something totally new to us. We tried to present also in detail in our final conference in Bulgaria, where we had more than 30 participants from the public administrations and also from the NGO sector. So this really created a lot of interest among policymakers. So maybe we shall continue definitely. Also, we provide to our municipalities I wouldn't say service, but support to produce their local strategies. So far, we were doing this mainly in the energy sector. Since we have also new knowledge obtained, maybe we can provide them support and knowledge when they build up their strategy policy in regards to waste management. So this is another increase of our portfolio services. Thank you.
Okay. Metropolitan City of Naples is a public administration So, its mission is to spread the message not only on typical particular bio-waste or waste, because in Naples there are different bio-waste. I think to tomato industries that you can obtain, you can use to obtain biodegradable plastic. So it's to spread and to realize a symposium with the stakeholders. This is the.
For us, food waste prevention is something that we are planning to do next year. Our technicians, our engineers have internalized the idea that the future is biorefineries. So this is clear for us. But something that came out of this project and that I would like to put more attention, it's the footprint, the energetic footprint that collection itself has on the overall result. So on the balance of especially CO2 emissions, this is something that we were not aware of. So probably we will need to study further, and thanks to Enea, we are aware of this thing. And also we would like to explore more clearly the yields of the different collection systems, because we faced a lack of information in regard to this. There is some information in Italy, especially. They have done a good job in creating a database of the results of separate collection. But apart from Italy, it was very difficult for us to go and sit with a municipality and told him, okay, if you go this way, you will have between 60 and 65 of collection rate. And if you go that way, it's 7 to 75. That was not an easy task for us. And we would like that someone, maybe ourselves, could develop more on that. And yeah, I think that's what I want to do in the future.
Laura, do you want to comment on that? No. No. So maybe it's time to put those two on table. Maybe rebounding on your question. I think, like, as a conclusion, for me, the strong point of this project was the effort that both the pilots and the experts made to kind of reach, like, make half the way to understand each other. And let's say the stakeholder engagement process was really key to force, let's say, the experts to try to put themselves in the perspective of the end users. And like, really, because the first version of LCA, I remember, like, it was lots of graphs and how do you put some sense in that, and how do you put it into discussion, because it's valuable, it's important for decision making, but you need to do the effort, and also the end user also need to kind of understand, change their perspective. And so for me, this kind of project is useful to give us some room and some tools to do that. And this is something we are already doing in other projects, which we plan to replicate also. And I think this is the value, giving us resources and comfort to do it properly, to take the time to do it properly. And yes, that's it, I think. And that's it for my conclusion. So I'm good also. And I thank you all for your time, for your inputs. And I think we'll move on to the next session, but I'm not entirely sure who is going to speak. It's Mergim. So I will give the floor to Mergim. I think we can give a round of applause for our speakers.